had like, 20 seats, that means we know that there's gonna be some amount of chairs and some amount of stools that adds up to 20. So let's pick two numbers, and then let's figure out how many legs we would use for that number of chairs and that number of seats, and then let's do some adjusting, right? So several groups use that approach. I saw that from A, I saw that from ACEs, from 2s, and from 3s, all used kind of that structured guess and check. Did you get there?
No.
Yes.
Couple groups did, couple groups didn't. Awesome. Okay. I saw a group use a strategy of drawing a picture
I'm totally competitive.
similar with like a guess and check approach, but using a visual to say, well, here's our, well, what did these circles represent in group 6?
Chairs.
Seats.
These were the seats, so you drew 20 of the seats. Where'd you go from there?
So I knew there were 20 seats and 60 legs.
Okay.
So I just decided to go with it and was like, I'm gonna add 4 legs to as many seats as I can.
Okay.
And then I realized, well, now there's 3 open seats still. And then I just started crossing off seats and replacing them on the stools
Okay.
until I filled up the rest of the seats. And then that made me realize, oh, then I have 12 stools and 8 chairs.
Okay. So you just started adding some legs and then adjusted based on the fact that you had some seats with no legs. I've seen groups also start with like, let's make them all stools and then see, because that's actually what this group started to notice was like, hey, I made them all stools, or I made a whole bunch of them stools and I still had some legs left over, so I could convert a stool to a chair by just adding a leg to it. Okay? I saw this approach happen. This is where we would say a system of equations. So systems of equations is actually a standard for 8th grade. So this is something our 8th grade students do. And the S and the C represent what?
Stools and chairs.
Okay, so stools plus chairs equals 20. What does that mean? Like, why would we write this equation? Okay, so for every stool and every chair, the number of stools and the number of chairs, right, has to add up to 20 because that's how many seats we have. What's with the 3S and the 4C? So every stool we have has 3 legs, so 3 times the number of stools plus 4 times the number of chairs equals 68. Okay. So then it looks like this group chose to use a substitution method to then evaluate this system of equations. There's other ways we could do it. We also could have done elimination by taking this whole thing times 3 and then subtracting the 2 equations. That could have worked as well. So lots of varieties to solve this. Is one better than the other? No, really isn't. Absolutely not. I've given this problem to elementary kids. I've given this problem to middle school kids. I've given this problem to high school kids. You see a whole variety of strategies. Likely in elementary, you're not going to see much of this business going on. You're usually going to see a lot of that and a lot of that. But especially when I work with my middle and high school folks around systems, let's start here. And then let's make some connections between what this means and what this means. Asking, where do we see the 20 in our picture? Where do we see the 20 in our equation? Where do we see the 3 and the 4? Where do we see the 3 and the 4? Helping build that connection between what's happening algebraically with what's happening pictorially. Okay, so that was our opening, which is a little longer than a normal opening, but I think it's important that we put on our math hats to get this party started. Thank you for indulging me.
So today, we are going to dive into math. So this was kind of our kicker, and at a certain point, I'm going to kick it back over to Katie again.
Do you want mine?
I do. Thank you. So, can I have Mary? It's so great to see you. Her daughter got her braces off yesterday. This is big news. Yes,
Big news.
Big day.
Yeah.
Mary, can you read out our objectives for today?
I'm happy to. Participants will examine beliefs held around mathematics instruction, preview the 8 effective teaching practices, explore how representations and conceptual understanding supports fluency of mathematical skills, and check in on monitoring instructional fidelity action plan and apply today's learning to that planning process.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mary. So we did our welcoming activity. We're going to kind of dive through some business. We're going to go back into some math, and then we'll have some time at the end to follow up on that action planning that we started last time we were together. So as always, we love questions. Parking lot is right here, and there are Post-it notes in these containers and also probably in these containers. So as questions arise, questions are very helpful. Make sure to write them down and then tag them on the parking lot. Again, we only know what we know. Setting positive intentions and analyzing progress from a strengths-based perspective. It takes a village. We are working together to achieve our goals. Honesty and authenticity are imperative to seeing current realities. So, we are where we are because of complex systems that have evolved over time. And then leaning into the spirit of the law and away from the letter of the law. So, as we're starting to solve problems and make progress, thinking through the why of what we're doing. Bob, can you loud and proud read our?
That the one public schools exist so graduates possess the knowledge, skills, and abilities to be successful at the next stage of their lives.
That was beautiful. Thank you very much. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. And then board goals, we see this super often. Yes, our board goals focus on 4th grade, ELA, 4th grade ELA for Black males, 11th grade math for Black males, but we know that our work is much bigger than this, and how does our work in math and ELI span K through 12 in making the progress represented here that we want to make in all of those areas. So I'm always like, okay, so how does this apply to me? So today we're really thinking about math. What is math instruction and what does math progress look like in our classrooms? So we didn't have any questions that came out of last Wednesday, but there were some very good pieces of feedback that came out through the survey, and I just wanted to share some of those pieces of feedback and what we're gonna do with those. So someone put, I need to know how to support slash coach these teachers. So my hope is as we continue to get more granular about instruction, that this need will be better served. What does it look like to support and coach teachers on this instruction? Something else someone put, needing learning transitions teachers here too to really nail down scheduling to get their voice. So there will be some time at the end of today's session to follow up on that action plan and continue to think about how to get this information to teachers. I want you to know that the more people that have access to this information, the better. So if you are wanting to find ways to bring teachers to these sessions, I am open to that. But the reality is not everyone can be here, so we need to continue to think about how are we using our teams to transmit this information to our teams. And then finally, while I believe I know look fors for good SDI delivery, I would love some work/collab scoring of sorts on this. Perhaps we watch/observe on learning transitions and evaluate on various walkthrough forms. This is an excellent idea. My hope is as we continue to get more granular about instruction in these sessions, we can continue to better define look fors and then begin to find ways to norm on instruction. That's got my wheels turning, so I'll be continuing to think about that. Okay, as always, parking lot is here. The questions that you ask are really important, so I just want to thank you for that and continue doing that. So scope and sequence for semester 2 of this year, I just want to talk through quickly. We are going to focus semester 2 on instruction. We have talked a lot about structures in place, such as who's scheduled in what. So are we doing all 9th and 10th grade? Are we doing 9th grade in one learning transitions? We've talked about which teachers should be paired with which students. So we've talked a lot about those kind of scheduling structures. We've also talked about those instructional schedules. So how does instruction get laid out over the course of a week or multiple weeks? We're gonna start diving into, now that we have that figured out, what should instruction look like in some of these areas. For February and March, we're gonna be diving into math. Katie is very smart in math. So she is going to be leading us in thinking through some of these very important areas that we should be seeing in learning transitions classrooms. Today we're going to be kind of digging into those conceptual ideas. And those specifically are using representations to build conceptual understanding, and then also this idea of going from conceptual understanding to procedural fluency and what that relationship looks like. So today we're going to be diving into those conceptual ideas. Next month, we're going to be actually, what does that look like? So we'll be engaging in some observing of model teaching. So what does that lesson actually look like to do those things? And then in April and May, we'll be diving into literacy. So that is writing, fluency, and reading comprehension, and how those are related to one another, and then what do those look like in a lesson. So framing for today's lesson, or session. Semester 2 PD will focus on what high quality SDI looks like in math and literacy. We're gonna continue checking in on those action plans that you started to build last Wednesday, and we're gonna be doing that for the rest of the semester. And also starting to think about how are we rolling out things going into next year. Ultimately, we are gonna continue to refine our processes for getting this work about high quality teaching to our instructional strategists, because ultimately that's the goal. I just wanna name consultants. You are very busy people and you have a lot to do. And so we need to be thinking about at our campus level, how are we leveraging multiple people? So like APs, coaches, I'm so glad you are here today, because how are we using our teams? How are we using our PLC processes? How are we using meetings, walkthroughs to make this happen? And again, APs and coaches, I'm really grateful you're here with us with consultants, because this work cannot live with one person. And so with that, I'm gonna kick this over to Katie.
Fantastic. So as Chelsea said, you know, we really have spent some time, it sounds like this year, with the what and the when. And now we're really ready to look at the how. Like, what should we focus on? And we've talked about like focusing on those Ames-aligned concepts. We've talked about intentionally planned transition schedules, as she said. And now it's about like, okay, we've got the kids in the spaces, we've got the teachers there, we've got the idea of what we should be teaching. How should that instruction look? What should we see when we go into those spaces? What should those student experiences be like? Okay? So we're gonna lean into the idea of effective mathematics instructional practices. And I wanna start by really amplifying the idea that our beliefs drive a lot of things. And anytime I enter a space with adults or students, there's a wide variety of beliefs around mathematics and around what mathematics instruction could or should be. So I want to honor that and think about the idea that our teachers also hold those same beliefs. So here's a really great quote from the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. I'm just going to read it aloud quickly. Teachers' beliefs influence the decisions that they make about the manner in which they teach mathematics. Students' beliefs influence their perception of what it means to learn mathematics and their dispositions towards the subject. So take a second and let that sort of sink.